4C Divers, welcome to Facebook Live. Thank you all for signing in and joining us tonight. It is Thursday. It is May 28th, 2020, and we appreciate you guys coming out. So let us know that you're here. Make a little comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Usually our good buddy Bill lets us know he's in the Arctic tundra. And so you can also let us know if you're here by giving us the thumbs up emoji, the smiley face, or the smiley face or the heart. Gosh, I'm all backwards today. All right. So as you guys know, May is our spearfishing month here at 4C. And what I like to do is I like to bring together the spearfishing community to give you guys the tips and tricks on how to go out and hunt fish. And May 1st is when the Goliath groupers and the hogfish came back into season. But we also have every day of the year, 365 days of the year is lionfish. You guys can go out and take out the lionfish, and those are good eating. So I wanted to make sure that we got some professionals about lionfish on before the end of this month. I'll get back to them in just a second. I just, again, want to let you know, if you're signing in, give us that thumbs up, that heart, or that smiley face to let us know that you're here. Awesome. So, guys, if you go to the 4C website, www.force-e.com, you'll see that we have Spearfishing Month, where we have 15% off spearfishing gear, guns, accessories, pole spears. So go over there, check it out. And then on top of that, tonight only, we're going to give you the coupon code if you want to go shopping and get some cool t-shirts or some cool rash guards, something for you to wear when you go out and hunt lionfish on the boat. So that coupon code, I'll put it in the comment section, but that coupon code is 20, the percent number, and then off t-shirt. So look for that code, and if you don't catch it, if you registered on our website for the event, you'll get an email with that coupon code, and that's good for 2 days of shopping on our online store. All right. So we do have some guest presenters over here. I'm going to introduce. We've got on the screen there is Ali. Say hi. He is the owner and the mastermind behind the Zookeeper, which is the device that we use to put lionfish in to make sure that they don't poke us when we're diving. He also does a lot with lionfish derbies and a lot with FWC folks. So he's going to give us a great presentation about all types of things, invasions, the biology of lionfish, treatments, when you get stung, the then versus now data. So we'll let him go first. And then we have Mr. Charley Schram. He is what we call our lionfish king here in South Florida. There's Charley. And Charley is a local diver who likes to go out and take care of these lionfish problems. He goes out as much as he can and gets as many fish as he can, and he loves to educate people. So his favorite thing to do is teach you guys about how to fillet a lionfish, so that way you don't get hurt, and also you can enjoy that delicious sweet meat that lionfish has. So, all right, so just checking in. There's everybody. Everyone's saying hi to you guys and hi to me. Thank you guys for tuning in. And again, just go to the 4C website and have fun shopping during Spearfishing Month and use that coupon code to get extra discounts on cool apparel at 4C. All right. So, Ali, go ahead. It's your plate. Go for it.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ali, the Zookeeper guy in Sarasota, Florida. Today, I'm going to talk about the good old lionfish and where we're at with it, the invasion, the biology, the hunting, the getting stung, then versus now, and finally what the future looks like. So anybody have any questions, please type it in. I want it to be as interactive as possible. The best way to show the invasion is to pull out this map I got here. There we go. Hopefully you guys will be able to see it. It's a world map, and we have two types of lionfish in our waters. We have the Torois miles, which their natural habitat is this blue area, which is the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. And then we have the Pterois volatan, and the green area is their natural habitat, and it extends a little bit over here, which is the Pacific Ocean. The red you see here, there's the Gulf of Mexico and the eastern coast of the Atlantic. That is the invaded areas, along with the Caribbean Sea. And the striped part here is the potential for lionfish to continue on south. And the new area is the Mediterranean. We just spoke with some marine biologists in Turkey, and we have connections in Cyprus, and it's really wreaking havoc over there. They're looking at really, really big explosions of lionfish. So that's the invaded areas of lionfish. What we saw in 2006 was the explosion of their population, which is what the Eastern Mediterranean is seeing right now. And people started talking about, hey, we need to remove these fish. Our natural fish don't see them as predators or a food source. So the only way to save our natural or native fish is to actually go and remove lionfish by lionfish off the reefs. When I heard about it in the end of 2010, I was asked, as a designer, to design something to protect the divers. So I came out with, actually, I have number one right here. This guy was made in Curacao, and this is what started me on the route of doing Zookeeper full-time. So that's how Zookeeper came about. Let me talk about the biology of lionfish, and I'm going to try and share a screen here, and I hope I do it correct. Maybe not. I'm going to try it again. 3, 2, there. Hopefully you all can see this. This is a lionfish. The volatan and the miles are visually identical, so I'm not sure which one is this one is. But what's important here to know is what is venomous and what is not. So I don't know if you guys can actually, oh, there we go. Let me do this so that where I am running my cursor right now, I don't know if you guys can see that. That is 13 venomous spines on the dorsal fin. Each one of these guys here is venomous. And on this one here, you can see the sheathing pulled back a little bit, and you can see the actual spine, which is right there. And then down below on the pectoral fin, which is this guy, he has 2 of them, one on each side of him. The leading one is a venomous spine. And then, of course, there's 3 anal spines right there. Those are the venomous spines on a lionfish. The rest of the fins are not venomous, including the big one that makes them so beautiful underwater. Also note that the face of a lionfish feels like a really coarse sandpaper when handling lionfish, and that's something that Charlie will get to. When we grab them by their cheeks, when you're done, you've pretty much sandpapered your fingers. And then the other thing that I like to tell people about are right there. They actually have horns. And while they're not venomous, if you accidentally hit that, it hurts. Not as much as these guys, but it hurts. So that's the lionfish. It's got 13 dorsal spines that are venomous. one spine on each pectoral fin and 3 anal fins. So there's 18 total venomous spines. So now I'm back, I think. So that's the biology of the lionfish, and later on, Charlie's going to talk about even more stuff on the lionfish. Hunting them, that's my favorite part. Hunting them is like playing Angry Birds. It's addictive. So to hunt them, we use pole spears. This is one of the pole spears that Zookeeper sells. It's made by Zombie Stick for Zookeeper. When you buy the best pole spear is actually going to be the one that you are most comfortable using. While I'll swear by this pole spear, it really depends on the user. But there's an interesting thing that you all can see here. There's 2 bands on this pole spear. And here's the reason. This is something that Neritic, who also has a really good pole spear, they came out with 2 bands on it because you only use 1 band. But if it breaks, it's going to break underwater. And that's where you have your backup. If the backup breaks, then you better be good at tying knots and trying to figure it out. But it's always good to have a backup when you're underwater, because if it breaks, it's going to happen underwater. The other thing that comes with this pole spear is a heat shrink and a cord, so you can put your own grip on it wherever you want. And then it comes with a standard 6mm threaded male for the standard Paralyzer tips that we have here in Florida. Paralyzer tips, you want to find something that has 3 tips or more, 3 spines or more, and I have one here, and I'll show you. This is Zookeeper Straight Shot, and it's called a straight shot because the tines don't come out at an angle. This is my go-to spear point. No barbs on it, but again, it really depends on diver preference. I think Charlie is showing, is that a straight point?
Straight with a single barb that's been JB welded, your available barb.
Yep. So there are conical barbs that can slide over this, and you can JB weld it on, like he's showing on his. So that way you have 1 barb. I generally don't like. There you go. So there's a conical barb that can be JB welded on it.
This is the zombie stick. This is one of Ali's zombie sticks.
Black zombie stick. Yeah.
And this one's ready to go.
And then the other thing, there are spear tips out there that have multiple barbs. If you're hunting something else and you need the barbs, do it. But the barbs do take a big toll on a Zookeeper's funnel. So I generally advise people to file down and just leave 1 barb or a couple of barbs as opposed to having multiple barbs.
What I have here, this is the official Lionfish Slayer. It has a 6-inch tine. Yep. This is mounted to a JBL, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but these barbs on the inside have been filed down, so that's a lot easier to get in and out of a Zookeeper in particular. And I'll talk about when I use this one specifically.
Yeah, that spear tip I call the Annihilator.
That is the intent. We'll talk about that.
So basically, you're, and then of course, I've got a Zookeeper here. So the Zookeeper comes with a funnel entry, and what happens is when you push the lionfish on a spear, the funnel's going to open. It's going to open up around and then close around your spear, and when you pull it out, it strips the fish and keeps them inside. Again, while I'll swear by Zookeeper, I have to. again, it's diver preference. I try to make these Zookeepers to where different types of diving, people that are doing different types of diving can use different types of Zookeeper. I have 7 different models. Starts from 19 inches for the small one. This is the medium, which is 24. And the large one is 28. But then we have the small expandable ones that are for more professional spear fishermen who are going for large fish, but also want to get some lionfish while they're down there. So there's smaller ones that expand and become larger. And then we have the commercial ones that are very, very large, that'll hold anywhere from 40 to 70 pounds of lionfish. All Zookeepers now come with the fast drain valve. I call it a valve because this is where water shoots out when you're pushing a lionfish in, instead of water coming back out through the funnel, which in turn may spit out a lionfish that's dazed and confused, and he's going to go to the darkest spot he sees, and of course you're probably wearing a black wetsuit. So the safety valve, this is actually, I think, the best part of a Zookeeper is this safety valve.
When you come up on the back of the boat, you lift it up, and it's easy to grab the cord or grab the handle, and the water just rushes out. It's better than the original, and there are retrofit kits available that you can get. And if you've got the old one, I highly recommend that you put the new valve on. It is magnificent.
So everything that I designed, this new valve design is one of them. Everything that I designed will fit the very first US made Zookeeper. So you have one of these on your original Zookeeper, this will actually fit it. All you have to do is take the old one out, put this one on, and put the cap back on it, and you're done. It's a lot easier to do on a boat. So that's the Zookeeper and the pull spear.
Funnels are available. The funnels do not last forever. You buy them in groups of 3 if that's what you want to do. They're a few bucks. They're worth it. And depending on what spear tip you use and just trauma opening and closing and whatever, you put a really big one in there, it stretches it. You start getting into the 16-inch hogs. But those funnels are replaceable. I use about a funnel a year, to be honest, and I kill a lot of them.
So I advise people to find gloves. Puncture-proof gloves do not exist. Nothing in this world is puncture-proof, but there's a lot of puncture-resistant gloves out there. Even if they're not hypodermic needle puncture-resistant, they still do help in squeezing the venom out before it actually goes into your hand. So wearing gloves is very, very important, regardless of what gauge it's tested to. Spearfishing gloves do a great job. I wear turtle skin gloves, which are hypodermic needle resistant, only on the palm side, but the majority of our stings happen on the outside of our hands. So gloves are very important to wear. And then, of course, you also need all your dive gear. Dive gear that you've kept, up to date with servicing. Make sure everything works properly. The most important thing to do when hunting lionfish is follow everything you've learned in your open water or advanced water classes. Make sure you check your air constantly. Check your no decompression limit constantly. If you're low on air or your NDL is down to whatever, don't go into deco. You can always come back and shoot those lionfish later, have fun doing it. So it's very, very important to keep in mind that, everything you learn during diving, it's very easy to forget. Once you see lionfish and you get all excited and everything, it's very easy to forget to check your air or your NDL. It's one thing you got to keep in mind constantly. And also, don't ever get comfortable. Because if you get comfortable, that's when you're going to get stung. And getting stung is not a walk in the park unless you're, so getting stung, which is my next topic to talk about. The lionfish is not going to come after you and sting you. You're going to get stung because of something that you did wrong. And the pain for some people is immediately excruciating. Let me rephrase that. For most people, it's immediately excruciating. It is really, really bad. But everybody has a different reaction to it. There are some people, one of which is on your screen right now, doesn't do anything to them, which I wish I was him. For me, I get stung and forget about it. Sometimes when you're at depth and you get stung, it may feel like a mosquito bite. And you'll probably say to yourself, you know what? I can hack this. I can continue my dive. Don't. Because when you start coming up the water column and that pressure on you starts getting less and less, the pain starts getting more and more. And you'll do a 3-minute safety stop in excruciating pain. I advise people, if you get stung by a lionfish or you think you got stung by a lionfish, abort the dive. Do a controlled descent, do your safety stop, get to the boat, and start applying what needs to be applied to mitigate the pain and the swelling. So the way to mitigate the pain is with heat. You want to apply roughly 130 degrees to where you got stung, whether it's hot water or in some cases, a couple of these will help. These are Zookeeper's Thermal 130. The name on it tells you how hot this is going to get. It actually gets a little hotter than 130 degrees. It gets up to 132 degrees, some of them to 135. You want to apply non-scalding heat to where you got stung for about a half an hour. Depending on how deep the sting goes, it could be more than a half an hour. When I get stung, and it's often, I take Benadryl and Tylenol and heat packs. And typically within 30 minutes, I'm ready to do my next dive. But the best way to handle all this is to avoid getting stung. Try very hard to stay focused. Watch that lionfish on the end of your pole spear until it's safely in your containment device, and then move on to the next one. So back in roughly 2006, we saw an explosion in the population of lionfish. And that's when everybody started saying, hey, we need to do something. We need to start removing them. And as the years progressed, tons and tons of lionfish were being removed from the waters. On the East Coast first, throughout the Caribbean, I mean, just a lot of poundage of these lionfish in all different sizes, whether they were small or very large ones. In 2014, 2015, actually in 2015, 4 divers went out for 6 hours and came back with 1,400 lionfish in a tournament. I'm lying. It was actually 1,399. But that's a lot of lionfish for 6 hours between 4 divers. Now what we're seeing is less lionfish at recreational depths in our marine environment. So roughly to 110, 120 feet in depth, we're not seeing the amount of lionfish that we saw in the past. And the question is why? You know, a lot of people ask, hey, why am I not seeing them? A few years ago, we were out for a lionfish hunt, and we probably shot about 1,000 lionfish that day. There were 6 divers on the boat, and we were taking turns, 2 down, 4 up. Roughly 40% of the lionfish we shot that day had sores on them. And one of the divers was a marine biologist, very well versed in lionfish, actually probably one of the #1 lionfish marine biologists. So he took it, and they started doing a study on what these sores were. So the theory is that a lot of lionfish died because of these sores. That was a few years ago, and now we're not seeing those sores anymore, but still we're not seeing as many lionfish. And Charlie and I had this conversation a couple of nights ago, and I asked him, I said, consider that back in 2006, there weren't that many people hunting lionfish, or in 2013 or 14 or 15. But since FWC came on board, and Reef Environmental Education and Lionfish University, the education and awareness has gone rampant on lionfish and the removal of lionfish. I think that we have tens of thousands of scuba divers going out there and targeting lionfish, and that is the main controlling factor of their population right now, at least until, you know, you get beyond recreational depths. So that's where we are at now. You're seeing a lot more life. I know back in the Caribbean right now, there's areas that we never saw little fish. And the last time I went there, which was last September, it was just loaded with native fish. So that's the great thing about what everybody is doing. And most of you that are listening here now have pat yourselves on the back. I mean, I see John, he's huge on removing lionfish. He's constantly after them. So pat yourselves on the back. I think it's because of you guys that our populations are down. What does the future look like? So there are groups that are working on deep water traps. That's the next level. Even though they're working on them and they're showing promises, the future still involves us going in and controlling their population. Until a natural predator emerges, we have to continue doing that. One thing I do want to say before I turn this over to Charlie is, and I'm going to grab mine. Some people ask me, what do I do with lionfish? Well, Charlie's going to show you how to handle them so that you can eat them. But if you go out there and you shoot a ton of lionfish, this is a $50 saltwater products license available from FWC. It acts as my fishing license for the year. It starts July 1st and it ends June 30th. Right, 30 days. So for $50, I can get this card. And this card allows me to take my catch and sell it to someone who has a wholesale license. Like the #1 place we send all our fish to is Halperns up in Orlando. And they're paying, you know, as long as they're worth filleting, they'll pay $6 a pound for them, which adds up real quick. I mean, you can easily make it as, you know, if you can find spots with high concentration of lionfish, you can make it a $600 day by getting 100 pounds of lionfish off the reef. So that's something you all should consider. The FWC site, you just go on there and look for the lionfish portion of it, and that'll show you where to go and get a saltwater products license. In short, we call it the SPO.
Ali, if I can inject here, in the
Yep.
state of Florida, you do not need a fishing license to hunt lionfish, to take them. You can use a spear gun, you can use a spear gun, a pole spear, even nets. People will net them down in the penny camp and places like that. The saltwater products license is only if you intend to sell them, but otherwise, there are literally times where my fishing license is currently expired. I will not renew until mini season because I don't need it, because I do not kill anything but lionfish, and lobster season is closed. You can also hunt lionfish on a rebreather, which is something that pretty much all the rebreather people know. I just want to put it out there for knowledge. There are a few people who feel comfortable enough to deal with the obsessive compulsive nature of being a rebreather diver, and they will hunt lionfish, and they get a lot of them. Just want to put that out there. It's all, the rules are all on FWC. It's real simple to understand what that's all about.
There was a question Mark Michael asked, are Dentex gloves good? I'm not sure what a Dentex glove is. Do you, Charlie?
There's those medical gloves, the armor gloves. I'm assuming it's something along that line. I do not know what a Dentex. Let me look it up. A Dentex glove, D-E-N-T-E-X?
Glove. I see Jennifer. Well, there's Eric. I thought there were just 10 or 12 of us. Well, on our coast, Eric, there's only 10 or 12 of us. But throughout the world, I mean, right now, the biggest hotspot right now is the Mediterranean. I'd love to put a team together and we go to the Mediterranean. They're pulling out kilos and kilos of lionfish over there. And then Jennifer wrote that we are still finding some with sores and healed sores over here. I'm not surprised. We're just not seeing as many as there were when we first saw the sores come up.
I haven't pulled one up with a sore on it for probably the better part of 2 years over here on the southeast coast. But we were seeing them with some frequency a while ago.
Yeah. So right now we're everybody's like, yeah, let's go to the Mediterranean. Right now there's a group of us that are working with marine biologists and entities over there in Turkey and in Cyprus. And, trying to help them out on figuring out what to do. But yeah, first chance I get, I'll let you all know, and we'll head over there and take our zookeepers with us.
Jeff Nelson asked a real good question, Ali. After the lionfish is dead, is the venom still active? He knows the answer. He just want to throw us a good question.
Well, so that is a good question. The answer is yes, it is still active. Typically when we hunt lionfish, once we get back to the boat with our containment device, whether it's a Zookeeper or something else that other people use, we empty out the lionfish into a cooler with ice. There's been some reports that once they're on ice, the venom goes away. So I'd like you all to consider that we put stuff on ice to conserve them. So when on ice, I believe the venom is being conserved. So it takes longer for the venom to dissipate than if a lionfish were just left out on deck. How long the venom is active, that's a question that I could not answer.
It's a protein-based venom. And my understanding is even on ice, after 24 hours, the protein has broken down and it is denatured. The more heat that hits it, the better.
I'll debunk that right now.
Okay.
so while on the island, we shot lionfish and put them in a freezer. And 3 months later, someone forgot about the bag. 3 months later, his mom took the bag out and got stung and went through everything that we went through when we got stung. So no, ice does not kill the venom. That I'll swear by right now. That is something that someone wrote. So here's the thing. There's another thing that says, you know what, if you get stung, put your hand in ice. You'll feel better. So that just numbs you.
Inflammation. It reduces inflammation.
Yeah, and it's just going to numb the pain. So consider that ice and you know, putting them in a cooler is going to conserve everything. What kind of fish? Reza Sharif asked, what kinds of fish have you seen eating a lionfish? So in the Gulf of Mexico, I've seen red grouper have lionfish in their stomachs. At a tournament, there was a mangrove snapper that was submitted, and when they cleaned it out, it had quite a large lionfish. I'm going to say that lionfish was probably about 7 inches, 8 inches long. And then on a Facebook post, somebody wrote that jacks and another fish, they've been finding lionfish in their stomach. Now that's great. That's awesome. We can't jump and say they're being predated on, because it's too far and few between right now. We have to continue doing it until you know, they're predating the lionfish more often. But right now, it's sporadic. It's very sporadic. Best gloves for lionfish? That's a hard one.
Hey, Ali, can you answer this one? They want to know, do you see a problem having both lobster and lionfish in a zookeeper at the same time?
I don't do that because those lobsters will eat my lion. No, I'm kidding. No, not at all. So here's an interesting thing. Why is it called a zookeeper instead of a lionfish keeper? So I use this to put all my lobsters in with all my lionfish. I also use it for marine cleanups. You know, taking monofilament off of a reef, or, you know, cans and bottles. I just put them in here. This is great for marine cleanups. It's great for lobsters. Once I have a lobster and it's a legal lobster, I've measured it. I've made sure it's not a egg-bearing lobster. I put the tail right here, and then just push a little bit, and they just, by themselves, they go right in. Scalloping, when you're ready to go scalloping, you can take this and put your scallops in it. So that's why we named it. I'd like to take the credit for naming it Zookeeper, but it's actually my wife who came up with the name. So, smart wives. She came up with the name, and the reason was it can be used for, oh, busted. You got something for us there, Charlie?
What? What are you talking
about? Something for us? So yes, it can be used for both lobsters and lionfish at the same time. So any other, have you heard of someone immune to the venom? Because Pavel never gets stung. So Charlie is immune to the venom.
Unaffected. Nobody's immune.
Are you going to show us the correct way to spear lionfish and how to secure them properly into a zookeeper? You know what we should do is get a group together, meet up at 4C, get on a boat, and we'll go out and hunt them. And do and I'll show the correct way to spear a lionfish. I can't do that here right now. Don't have any lionfish. I was supposed to go out today. cancel that. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Charlie. You almost ready?
Yeah, I'm just getting the fish close and getting set up. Got the knives.
All right, guys, hold on here. We have some complications with the cameras.
Okay, we'll go over here.
There we go. We're good.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Just put me in the corner.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Over here. Set it down.
Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go over gear real quick. I know you're asking some questions over here. We're gonna get to them. I showed briefly a minute ago this particular this tip right here. This is my getting the lionfish in the back of the hole gun. I dive with both a JBL tapered lionfish pole spear, a 3-footer, and I also dive with the JBL 20-inch Explorer. This is for reaching a lionfish in the back of the hole. This is designed to get a hold of the lionfish. I'm not worried about tissue damage. I'm just trying to get the fish out of the hole. It has 2 bands. It hits like a hammer. It is designed to get the lionfish and bring them home every time. Mission number 1 with lionfish is killing them and removing them from the reef. Mission number 2 is eating the lionfish. That is my philosophy. Again, this is the JBL tapered pole spear. It's a brushed aluminum. I'm a really, really big fan of this in particular. Shout out to Sam Fretz at Force E who convinced me to buy this thing. And the first shot I took, I knew I'd never use another pole spear again.
That is a good pole spear.
Say again?
That is a very good pole spear.
This is Ali's, again, zombie stick. It happens to have the straight on the end with a barb that's been affixed to it. It works really well for us here on the West Coast in the concentration. You don't really need the barb. Ali can explain that, or there's a write-up on his website about it. But this is just a very basic pole spear. Another option, and Jim Chiefy Matthew, guy I dive with a lot, was gracious enough to invite me out this past weekend to actually get the lionfish for this event. He likes this tool very much. It's pretty much a kind of a sling. You hold this cuff here, and then you pull back, and you release. So it's sort of a modified pole spear, and it has a conventional paralyzer tip on the end that has little barbs. This is a really good device. A lot of people over here on the East Coast like this tool. It's got a wonderful little safety cover. What do we got? Let's see. Sorry. Oh yeah, absolutely. Make sure to get all your lionfish gear at Force E. They have a wonderful online. I'm wearing the hat, so you know I got to pump it up. So, all right. Another option is this is what we started out with years ago, and this is what we just call the conventional the yellow lionfish spear. Very inexpensive. Force E has them. It's a great place to start if you've not done it before. And there are a lot of people who are very experienced that are still using this very spear, low to almost 10 years in to the invasion. All right. On the other side of that, we'll talk a little bit about the handling. You must be careful. I will tell you, my attitude is simply to hunt lionfish is to get zapped. It is an occupational hazard. Eventually, everybody takes a shot. I only know one person that's been doing it for many years, and she has never been hit. I don't know why. She's just really careful about what she does. I'm going to go ahead and show, as far as knives go, any good, sharp, quality fillet knife. It doesn't have to be an expensive knife. It doesn't have to be a cheap knife. My principal weapons of destruction, I have these old Shimano knives that I've had for the better part of 20 years. They're also called a master with a different label. And then the other thing that I really like, and I'll show how to use it and not use it, is this is a skin puller or fish skinning pliers. They're about $6 at Walmart, and I'll show what you do with those. Now, another thing that's a really good idea to have, and I dive with these are shears, EMT shears. Of course, Force E has these. Everybody knows how to find them. Not terribly expensive, and It's really good to dive with a pair of shears anyway. You'll find you use it more often than a knife unless you're hunting anyway. Okay, do we want to take any questions or just move on through? Okay. All right, I'm going to pull up the lionfish. These came out of the water Saturday. I gutted them and froze them. So they're icy cold. The colder the lionfish is, it's like pretty much any other fish. The colder it is, the easier it is to handle it. Oh, I still got ice on it. Hang on. Trying to make sure I don't throw the. There we go. All right. So here is a lionfish. Ali spoke briefly. One thing to know about species, there are two principal species, as Ali spoke about. Down here, I'll tell you where, I'll go into anatomy, but I'm going to start with the difference in the species. Down here, there are what are called rays in the lower fin. And I believe that one species has 9 rays and the other species has 12. But there are some hybrids running around that are not 9 or 12. So that is a possibility. But here we have the classic lionfish. As Ali talked about, there are 13 dorsal spines. And I'm going to pull back the skin sheath on one of the spines right now. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but it's a translucent spike, and it is fluted. It has 3 veins in it, and there is a tissue that is in those spines, in that flute. And when you are envenomed, if you take a stick, your tissue comes into contact with that tissue, and the venom flows to you. Now, what Ali talked about was some gloves are very good about reducing your contact with that venom. That's a real thing. I pulled back the skin sheath here, and I'll do it one more time over here. And I'm pulling this skin sheath down. I'm hoping the camera's picking this up. Right here, there is the spike. Hoping y'all can see that. So we have 13. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is a mutant. This little short guy is 12. And there's one more right here. That is number 13. On the back side of number 13, this is just a fin. There is nothing there that you need to worry about. All right? And then on the tail, there's nothing you need worry about. And I'm going to roll the fish over, lay him down, and we're going to talk about the pectoral fins right here. This is how the lionfish actually gets its name. It is this beautiful, gorgeous fin that opens up, and obviously we've all seen pictures of them, and we've seen them in the water, and that's where the lionfish gets his name, from that pectoral fin. There is nothing here to worry about in the pectoral fin. It is just a soft fin. On the bottom, we have the pelvic fin. And in the pelvic fin, we have a couple of things going on. What we have is we have one spike. So you have 2 pelvic fins on the fish, and there is a spike on either side. And I just cut down and separated, and there is another spine right there that is once again fluted, and the venom is there. These fish do not have a venom sac. The tissue grows in the flutes and the venom occurs. My understanding is scientifically they still haven't quite figured it all out, where it comes from, how it's maintained. But then the rest of the pelvic fin is just that. It's a fin and a spine. Now, we're going to go down here to the bottom, and here we have the anal fin, and there are 3 anal spines. So we have number 1, number 2, and number 3. And behind those little short spines, there is just a regular fin. So all you really have to worry about as far as venom goes is the 13 dorsal spines, the 2 pelvic spines, 13 dorsal spines, 2 pelvic spines, and 3 anal spines. Other than that, you've just got a regular old fish on your hands. Ali made special note, up on the skull, the front of the fish, these are the horns. I'm not sure if you can see this little, I'll get my finger behind it so we can get it in contrast. That is a nice little spike that's going on right there. And there's no venom in there, but definitely you can poke yourself. It has a heavily armored skull. When they get bigger, they get very heavily armored. There's a lot of structure, and it is a really good way. I prefer to hold them like the big mouth bass. I will put them on the spear, and I'm going to take them off if I'm going to trim them. And not everybody does that, and that is fine. I'll use scissors, and I will go from the back to the front, and I will take everything off. I'll show that in just a minute. But there is a lot of roughened structure. I'm going to turn this at an angle, and hopefully the light will pick it all up. There's some very heavy, bony structure in here. And then we have a nice, big, gigantic mouth. Lionfish have 2/3 its length. If it fits in its mouth and it's 2/3 of its length, a lionfish will eat it. It's amazing some of the things that we have found inside them. All right, now that that's been discussed, we've kind of gone through anatomy. Ali, anything else I need to touch on?
No, you're doing good.
Okay. Have a beer, buddy.
Oh,
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to handle this first, and I'm going to take off the spines. So before you clean them, it is a really good idea to take off the spines. I don't just take off the spines. I take off all of the fins that are on the back and on the bottom and down in the anal area because I want what we call a smooth fish. So my technical term for this is a grenade. And we're going to remove the spines with these shears, and we're going to demill the grenade. Trying to make sure they don't go flying everywhere when I do this. There we go. So what I've done now is I have taken off, we have a smooth backbone. Now there's little bitty nubs down here that are actually fragments of the spine. There is venom in there, but to be honest, it's so blunt, you can't, there's no danger there. You can push your hand on that and it's not a problem. It just won't enter your hand. All right. Now I'm going to turn them over and I'm going to go after this pelvic spine and take the fin and spine. I'm going to take the whole thing off. So there goes the fin and there goes the spine. And I'm hoping you can get this. There is the spine. There's the spine right there. And then this is just the fin behind it. I'll set that down.
Did you cut the other one yet?
What? No, I did not. On this side. It's right here, Ali.
While you cut it, let me just answer a question that just came in from William. I live in New Hampshire and I want to get into lionfish hunting. And I hear that we have them coming up in the northeast. Do you guys have any information about that or there to look? William, during summer months, the way lionfish spread, you will find lionfish up in the northeast. But when the water gets below, is it 55 degrees? 55?
55 Fahrenheit is my last number.
So when it gets below 55 Fahrenheit, the lionfish can't live in that cold of a water. So during the winter, they die out. So there is no problem up there with lionfish other than really, really small ones that eventually will just die. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and there is a permanent population inside of 55 degrees. So up in the Carolinas in particular, out on those wrecks, 100 miles offshore, the water temps don't ever go below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And in Bermuda, it doesn't go below 55. So they have a permanent population of lionfish up in those areas. There may be some warm spot in New Jersey I don't know about, but 55 degrees is it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to finish taking off the anal spine altogether. Once I've taken the anal spine off, this fish has been broken down. So what we have is we have a tail. There's nothing. We have these beautiful pectoral fins. There's nothing going on there. I've taken off the dorsals altogether. I've taken off the pelvics, and I've taken off the anal. This fish is now completely safe to handle. All right. Now we're going to go in, and I'm going to take my knife, my nice sharp fillet knife, and the colder a fish is, the better. Try to remember to cut away from yourself. It's a good idea. I'm just breaking the skin, and I'm traveling down the backbone with this nice knife, just traveling down and traveling down. And I get down here to the bottom, and I stop. And then what I'll do is I'll lift this pectoral fin, and I'm cutting behind the pectoral fin, almost like you would a crappie if you were going to head them. And I'm going to cut down around here. Good. Now I'm going to come to the bottom. I'm going to turn this way, working a little backwards. And I'm going to cut. I've already cut it when I gutted it, but I'm cut down here. So what I've done is I have broken the skin. I cut it at the top and broke the skin. Cut him behind the head, I broke the skin. Then I've cut him up the bottom, the abdominal cavity, and I've broken the skin. And now what you're left with is the skin, and I'm going to lift it off. So I'm going to do this just with my fingers, and you grab that skin. It's a very tough skin. And I'm pulling, and I'm pulling, and I'm pulling, and I'm pulling. And this skin has been removed from the animal. And what you're left with is the skin, and there's the fillet. It might be hard to see. If you see this right here, these are the scales. Scales are edible. Don't even worry about overwashing your fillet. The scales have no taste. They don't, I don't care how you cook it, they're not going to bug you. I wouldn't recommend you leave all the scales on necessarily.
What are you talking about, Charlie? That's my favorite part.
Right, I believe it is your favorite part because you like them whole. Okay, so that's been done. Now I'm going to lift off the fillet. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just traveling with my knife down the backbone, just like you would. This is very similar if you've ever cleaned a dolphin, or they call them mahi-mahi these days. Dolphin's the same as mahi-mahi, but mahi-mahi costs more. Lift off the fillet. I'm just traveling down the spine, and I'm going into the rib cage, and I'm taking off the fillet. This one's nice and cold. There it is. So this fillet has been lifted off. The only thing you need to really look for is there are always a few rib bones that like to sneak in there. This is where your nice sharp knife comes into use. Travel down and take off those rib bones. Always be careful if you want a proper fillet. Take this fish, move it in your hand, feel for those bones, and all those bones are gone. And there you have a really nice fillet. This is probably about a 14-inch fish, and you get one 14-inch fish, and you've got a very nice meal. This is probably about 6 ounces of fillet.
Hey, Charlie,
Yes, ma'am.
they just want to know, do you typically remove spines before you gut a fish?
I do not, but many people do. It is not a bad thing to do. It is conservative. It is safer. If you're wary about what you're doing. One thing also, when you're just getting into these, it's a good idea to wear some really good gloves to protect yourself from the spines and really focus on what you're doing. Ali, talking about when you get stuck, I will tell you that the only time I get stuck is when I am moving too fast or I'm planning my next shot before I'm dealing with the lionfish that's in my hands. Overtasking yourself is a very big mistake if you don't want to take a zap.
Also, do you need to freeze your lionfish meat before you prepare it for meals?
No, you do not need to freeze the meat. It's good fresh. It is a meat that does really well if you freeze it. I like to use, I have one of those vacuum seal bags. So if I do really well, I'll clean, 9, 10, 20, 30 of them, 40 of them at a time. And then I will put it out for my wife and I at 16 ounces of meat, 1 whole pound. And that's almost a little bit too much for the two of us. And it goes very well.
So the question was preparing for sushi.
Oh, for sushi, I'm sorry.
So sushi, what do you advise?
Sushi is raw fish, and I don't eat it. But if somebody's into sushi, I really can't say. I don't know much about sushi, to be quite honest.
I like raw lionfish. I only make sushi with it if I caught it that same day.
Okay. I mean, sushi is pretty much
the day after, but no longer than that. And I don't freeze it. I put it in the fridge.
Okay.
And then the day after, I'll eat it. So but I'm not sure how long it could stay out before it's not good for sushi.
Ali, leave the spines on underwater or take them off? What are your thoughts on that?
In the Zookeeper, every time. Ali will tell you.
So there are people that do. Charlie does cut the spines off underwater. I advise not to. The more you handle a lionfish, the more the chances you're going to get stung. So I would advise not to shoot the lionfish. Put it in your Zookeeper, and then once you've got them on ice and you're back on shore and they're dead, they're not flailing around or anything. You know, deal with them there. So I would advise not to.
Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is the other fish, I've cut down the same fish. I turned it over. I cut down the spine. I cut behind the ear. Now this is the skinning plier right here. This one's made by Mustad in particular. Instead of using my fingers to pull the fillet off, I'm using the skinning pliers. And I find when you do a lot of these, it's a lot faster and it's a lot easier. All right. So that skin's been lifted off. And turn it here. And I'm just traveling down, same thing, I'm traveling down the spine. I've lifted off the fillet. And then what I want to do is I want to feel, there's some of the rib cage there. I'm hoping the camera gets it. But I'm traveling down the ends, making sure all these bones from the rib cage are gone. Nobody wants to bite into a bone. Yep, there it is. That's all good. I'm feeling this fillet. And then there's the other side. So that's a pretty solid fillet. That's about a 14-inch lionfish, which is pretty good, and that's a pretty decent meal. Now, one other thing we want to talk about the anatomy is there's something called the cheeks that they started doing over on the West Coast. I've only recently started doing this, and Ali, you do this a lot, correct?
On the big ones, yeah, because the best meat is right there where the mane of the lion. Right there, right where you're pressing.
Right. So what I've done here is if you lay this lionfish over, I'm traveling up this this fin, and right here there's a little groove. You can feel it's almost like my fingernail catches in that groove. I like to use a serrated knife blade for this, and what I'm doing is get a hold of it, and I'm cutting down and I'm sawing through. I go about halfway through. You can see what's happening. This is all meat that's coming away. Turn it over, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I just move my finger along this big old muscle, and right there in that groove is where I cut it, and just travel it at kind of a diagonal.
You're probably going to have to use the shears. Oh, no, you got it.
Yep. So that has come away. So what we have left now is this is a lot of meat. There's a couple of big bones in here. There's a big bone up here. Some people will cut it away. I just cook it and chew it off. And then, but there's just so much meat in here.
It looks like a lamb chop.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot to it, and you can roast it, you can fry it, you can broil it, you can blacken it. There's so many different ways of handling it, and you can see just these beautiful, beautiful pelvic fins. That's it. All right. Any questions about what I've done so far? Anybody? Okay, got it. All right. Now, there's one other thing we want to talk about, and that is Ali has a specialty that he likes to do with the smaller lionfish. And I have a little bitty rascal in here, which is almost too small for this purpose, but he wanted to talk about. I typically clean fish that are 8 inches or longer. The little rats, I typically have been tossing away. But Ali has something he likes to do with those fish that are in that 7-inch to 5-inch range. So go ahead, Ali, talk about what you do.
So cut everything off of it.
Okay, so I'm going to take the shears, because that's the best way to do it for me.
And I'm cut all the fins.
Cutting along the backbone, taking off those fins. Even though it's a little rascal, it still has venom and it has the same amount. I'm going to take off the pelvis and the pectorals, taking everything off. All we're going to be left with is a little lionfish carcass, not even the tail. The tail itself, the tail fin is off. So what we have left is a fish that all the fins have been removed. And there's his little lionfish mouth. Bless his heart. There it is.
Just gut him and cut the head.
So we'll now take the fish. I'm going to gut it.
And cut the head off.
So go here. Now I'm going to cut the head off. I know this is just a little bitty morsel.
That one's really, really small, but
it is.
But back home, that's, you know, we take all the small ones like that. That's what we do to them. And then we add a little salt, pepper, some lemon to it, and we deep fry them. When you go to eat it, the meat comes off in 4 chunks.
Right. Now, what he's talking about there, if you look at this fillet came across really solid, but here you can see the 4 chunks he's talking about. See how this fillet is starting to separate? Sometimes they do that. So he's talking about the top and the bottom on each side makes your 4 chunks, as it were.
They just come off in chunks, and we'll have a plate load of small ones. You'll have like, I don't know, 30, 40 of small ones. It's time consuming cleaning them, but then you sit down, you watch a NASCAR race or anything on TV, and you just eat them up. I think they're like good.
Any more questions?
They want to know if you are traveling. They want to know why, if you should leave them down on the reef or bring them back up.
It depends. If you are somebody that is worried about getting stung, if you don't want to fool with fish, the best thing you can do is just shoot them and drop them. Make sure that they're dead. Do not feed sharks or eels or anything from your spear tip. We do not want to condition these animals to start assaulting us, and it happens in places in the world. So zap them, kill them, and drop them. There is no harm in doing that whatsoever.
So one of the things we did back home, when I say back home, it's the Caribbean. That's where I was raised. That's where Zookeeper started. One of the things we do is we take all the fish out. When we get to shore, over there, shore diving is really big. We get to shore, the ones that we didn't want to keep, we would literally do what Charlie just did, cut all the spines off and give them to people to take home and try them. I would not leave any lionfish on the reef because I eat them all. But maybe, like Dave said, give to the crew of the boat if you want. If it's a fishing boat, they can use it to make chum or something like that.
Charlie, everybody's watching you play, so go ahead and...
Got 2 more fish to take down here. We're going after the rib cage. Just real focused on what I'm doing because I did not take the spines off of this animal. And I'm not wearing gloves, and I don't recommend anybody do this unless you really know what you're doing. When I was a kid, I worked as a fish cutter, so I'm very comfortable doing all of this. And I'm also very comfortable with their anatomy. But I'm very focused on this because, as I said, if you are inattentive, that is when you get into trouble with lionfish. You must give them your full attention. Ali touched upon the fact that when you're diving, if you're somebody that's a new diver, I do not recommend that you do this. One thing that we're all guilty of is I'm a new diver. I want to get some fish. I want to see what bounty the ocean has to offer. Get comfortable diving before you do this. Get good. Try to find some people to dive with that will show you the ropes on lionfish. There's a lot of people, as Ali talked about. There are several Facebook groups in Florida in particular that are very focused on lionfish. He talked about Lionfish University. Ali is involved with that group.
Lionfish guides.
Right. Yeah, and there are people that you can hire to take you. If you come from Antarctica and you have never been for lionfish, you can come to Force E Scuba Centers as well as other places, and you can hire a lionfish specific guide to teach you how, and they will show you the ropes. And I'll be honest, taking a lionfish class is not a bad thing to do. It's not terribly expensive, and you will learn so fast compared to learning on your own. You're away on vacation. It's something good to do. You're helping the community. You're helping the lionfish. Lionfish are the greenest fish in the sea in the Western Atlantic. They do not belong here. They are here to stay. So our job is to take them out as best we can. We're just trying to give, the motto of Zookeeper is until a natural predator emerges. Is that right, Ali?
That's correct.
Okay, and it is about trying to give a breather. I can tell you there are certain species of crustaceans and fish that have just been pummeled by these animals. And I am seeing a rebound given that we have been hitting them so hard. Because lionfish have actually become a commercial commodity, there are professional spear fishermen that are going to crazy depths and crazy places, and they are getting these rascals. But you can find them on the beautiful reefs that your typical dive boat in Southeast Florida. I don't know a whole lot about the West Coast. I'm still waiting on my buddy in Sarasota to invite me out on this boat. I just mentioned this in passing.
So what kind of behavior do they have on the reef?
Behavior on the reef. Lionfish live in the same place that lobster live, on the reef. Ali will talk in just a moment about artificial reef structures because they hunt that a lot. They hunt limestone ledges, but lionfish are generally stationary. If you approach a lionfish like a predator, breathing hard, giving it a glare, poking something long at it, lionfish will figure out that you are perhaps intending on doing it some harm. So you want to kind of approach very gently, pull back, take aim, let fly. It's a good idea not to hit the sponges and the coral and the bottom around it. And believe it or not, you can actually take your spear and you can very often gently push a lionfish where you want it to be, and then you can pull back and you can let go. That is a very common thing. Ali, talk about hunting the habitat over there on the west side.
So let me answer a question from Bill, which is a really good one. What do you do to safely dispose of the carcass? And
I put it on at my house and the turtles eat it.
probably also means the spines that you just cut. Charlie, you want to give it a go?
What I do with them is if you're on the water, I go out with some guys on their private boats and I just throw it over the side and the catfish annihilate it. And I've never seen a dead catfish floating. Nature finds a way. If I take them home and clean them, I try to find a body of water. I happen to live in a community that has, community ponds and lakes, and I like to throw them out in the middle of the pond and they get consumed. Call it carbon neutral. You can also wrap them up in newspaper, put them in the garbage, put them in a bag. They smell after a couple of days, but if you wrap them tight enough, the smell really does not come out. But cleaning on the water is one of the best things. I'm from Louisiana, and one thing they always taught us, if it comes from the bay, it goes back to the bay. We throw all of our biological refuse back into the water. Something finds a way to use it.
Yep. So that's a great way. But if you're at home, what I generally do is, and you're not on the water, I take all the spines and the carcasses and everything. I put them in a box first, and then put the box in a plastic bag or 2 or 3 and tie it real good and hope the wife doesn't yell at me the next day for the smell.
You can also freeze them. You can put these animals into a bag and throw it in the freezer, and on the morning you're going to work, put it in your garbage can and away it goes. That's also a method of doing it.
You guys, can you talk about the FWC challenge that's started a couple of days ago?
Yeah, May 22nd, you just go online. There's actually a link on the Force E webpage right now that shows you where to sign up. If you get 20 lionfish, you take a picture, you submit it, they will send you a shirt. You get 30 more, they send you a coin. And I think once you hit 50, you get an extra lobster for mini season each day. So instead of getting your 6 lobster per day in mini season, you get 7. You got a cool coin. I've got some friends that have been doing this for about 4 or 5 years. Right. At some point, if you want to check them in, you're supposed to bring the tails to a checkpoint. Force E, all locations happen to be a checkpoint. And what I have here, let's see if I get into the camera. If you cut off the tail, like I'm doing here, and you bring them to Force E or the other participating places, verification, check stations, that is a kill right there. The more of them you get, the more goodies you get for free. There is no downside to this. You're helping the reef, you're getting some t-shirts. They even will give you a Zookeeper autographed by my good friend.
No, not autographed. No,
FWC
has custom Zookeepers with Be the Predator logo on them. And really cool Zookeepers too. I mean, they're cool.
Yeah, one thing, you must register online to be in this program. You cannot just walk into the dive shop and say, here's my 20 tails. You can't just send pictures into into FWC. I believe it runs May 22nd, all of June, all of July, all of August. I think it breaks off about the middle of September. Do not quote me on that, but there is an end game. It's 4 months of killing, and there's all sorts of good booty and loot. And then there's one of the coins that Ali is holding up. They give Ali. It's a new coin every year, isn't it?
Every year they have a new coin. Here's the back of it. Now,
one thing that happens when in order to get your free lobster, your extra lobster, you must have that coin in your possession.
Yep.
So you need to get your, I can't remember, there was 20 or 50 lionfish. You have to get your lionfish before mini season comes along. Have that coin in your possession, and that is what FWC. If you get checked for lobster on your body count, you got 5 guys on the boat, and you've got 28 lobster instead of 24. I need to see 4 coins, or 4 girls on the boat, because girls hunt too.
What about derbies?
Derbies. Reef. I've participated in reef derbies. Forest E Scuba Center is sponsoring a lionfish derby coming up June.
We haven't decided. We got to get it
out.
Okay,
we're trying to put it together. We're trying to put something together for June 20th, and June 27th is the alternate date in case weather does not cooperate. The intent is to have different classes. We're going to have a professional dive boat class, and we're going to also have a private boat class. And Ali's waving his arm because he's going to get off his wallet, and
I don't know, there might be a Zookeeper or something as a prize there, but I will be there to try to win it.
There you go. Ali, I can tell you, has won a lot of Zookeepers.
Actually.
Awesome. Well, guys, let me get in here. All right, guys. No, you come here. All right, guys. So we answered a bunch of your questions, but if you have any more, we'll make sure that we answer them once we go off live. But it's time to say goodbye, and we wanted to say thank you for tuning in. Ali, thank you. You're over in Sarasota. I are down here at the 4C Pompano store, and it smells like fish in here. Anyways, guys, thank you all. And we just wanted to say, again, thank you for supporting 4C through all this COVID-19 situation. We had to close the stores down for a bit, and then we were limited to what we could do. And we just love you guys. Love having customers like the 4C customers, because you guys make it so much fun, and you support us, and we love you. So thank you so much for tuning in. And guys, remember, we do have a sale on the Lionfish gear online and in the stores. And if you want, a promo code is going to be sent to you. It is 20% off t-shirt is the promo code. I put it in the comment section there. And you can use that to buy any apparel that we have for sale online. All right. So, guys, see you later.
Bye, guys.